There's something different about camping alone. During the day, it feels peaceful, quiet, almost freeing. But once the sun goes down, that same silence starts to feel wrong. No city noise, no people, no one to hear you if something happens. Just endless darkness and whatever might already be out there with you. Most people think the biggest danger in the wilderness is animals, but sometimes the things you need to worry about aren't animals at all. In this video, I'm going to share 3 disturbing true camping stories from people who went out looking for isolation and found something they were never meant to encounter. So if you're alone right now, maybe keep the lights on and let's begin. I spent 5 days camping alone in a remote stretch of forest in southeastern Utah. It wasn't my first time camping solo, not even close. I'd done dozens of trips like this before, places where you don't see another person for miles, where your phone becomes useless, and the only sounds at night are wind, insects, and whatever happens to pass through the dark. That's exactly why I liked it. The first 3 days were completely normal. I'd wake up with the sun, make coffee over a small fire, walk the trails, maybe read for a few hours, then cook something simple before nightfall. No noise, no interruptions, just quiet. Real quiet, the kind of quiet that feels peaceful until it doesn't. On the 3rd night, I was sitting by my campfire, just staring up at the sky. It was one of those perfect nights, clear, cold, and full of stars. No clouds, no wind, just stillness. And then it happened, a scream, loud, sharp, human. It cut straight through the silence like it didn't belong there. I froze. Every instinct in my body locked up at once. The sound came from somewhere deeper in the forest, maybe half a mile out. Not close enough to see anything, but not far enough to ignore either. I stood up slowly, trying to listen for anything else. But there was nothing, no movement, no second scream, no footsteps, just silence again, like it never happened. After a few minutes, I tried to reason with it. If you've ever spent time in the wilderness, you know animals can make sounds that don't sound like animals at all. Mountain lions, especially. They can scream in a way that almost mimics a human voice. It's unsettling, but explainable. So that's what I told myself. It had to be that. Even though, deep down, I knew it didn't sound right. Still, I convinced myself enough to go to sleep, and somehow, I did. The next morning, everything felt normal again. Sunlight has a way of doing that, making the night feel distant, like it wasn't real. I made breakfast, sat around the fire for a bit, and then decided to walk toward the lake. That's roughly the direction the scream came from. Part of me wanted proof it was just an animal. Tracks, signs, anything. Something to make it make sense. The lake wasn't far, maybe a 20-minute walk. When I got there, everything seemed normal at first. Still water, no movement, no sound. But as I walked along the edge, I noticed something off. There was a trail in the sand, not footprints, a drag mark. It started further back from the shoreline and cut straight through the sand toward the water. Like something heavy had been pulled or dragged. Scattered along the path were random objects, plastic wrappers, torn fabric, bits of trash, all loosely lined up along that same path, like they'd fallen out of something while it was being dragged. I followed it all the way to the edge of the lake, and then it just stopped, right at the water. No footprints leading back, no sign of anything leaving, just gone. I remember standing there, staring out at the surface. The water was completely still, no ripples, no disturbance, just a flat, dark reflection of the sky. And I had this feeling, like I wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't stay long. I turned around and walked back to camp, faster than I'd planned. Not running, but not taking my time either. Every few steps I'd glance behind me. Nothing was there, but it didn't feel like nothing. Back at camp, I tried to shake it off. Made food, kept busy, told myself I was overthinking it. But once the sun started going down again, that calm feeling disappeared, and the silence came back. Only this time, it felt heavier. About an hour after dark, realized I hadn't collected enough firewood. So I grabbed what I could find near the edge of my campsite and started picking up sticks. That's when I heard it. A voice, not loud, not clear, just a whisper from somewhere in the dark. I couldn't tell where it came from or what it said, but it was human. I know it was. I stood there for a second, listening. Nothing. Then the fear hit me all at once. I grabbed what I had and went straight back to the fire. For a while, I just sat there staring into the flames, trying to think, trying to come up with any explanation that made sense. Wind, echo, anything. But the more I thought about it, the worse it got. The scream, the drag marks, the lake, and now, a voice. Someone was out there, and they knew exactly where I was. I stayed by the fire for as long as I could, but eventually it started to die down again. So I grabbed my flashlight this time and went back out for more wood. I didn't go far, just a few steps beyond the light. That's when I heard it again. Another whisper. This time, closer. I turned and shined the flashlight toward the sound, but it barely lit anything up. Just trees, shadows, nothing else. And that made it worse, because I knew something was there. I just couldn't see it. I backed up slowly and returned to the fire again. After that, I didn't sit still much. Every hour or so, I'd go out, grab more wood, and every time, I'd hear something. Sometimes one voice, sometimes more. Low, quiet, like people talking to each other, just out of sight, like they were watching me, waiting. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I just kept the fire alive and waited for morning. The last couple hours before sunrise, it stopped. No voices, no movement, nothing. When the sun finally came up, I didn't waste time. I packed everything as fast as I could and left. Didn't cook, didn't clean, just grabbed what mattered and got out. On the trail back, I noticed footprints, multiple sets, faint but fresh, leading through the same direction I'd heard the voices from. I never went back, and I never found out what happened out there. No reports, no news, nothing. But I know what I heard, and I know one thing for sure. That forest wasn't empty, and whatever was out there was getting closer. This happened about a year ago. It was my first time camping completely alone. Not at a campground, not near other people, just deep in the woods by myself. I wasn't inexperienced. I'd camped plenty of times before, but those trips were always around other campers, families, hikers, people you could see or hear if something went wrong. This time I wanted something different. Silence. Isolation. No one around for miles. The trail I picked was supposed to be about a 2-hour hike in. Not very popular, not many photos online. Just a simple dirt trail leading into dense forest with a small clearing where people occasionally set up tents. When I arrived, the parking area was completely empty. No cars, no signs of anyone. Just a quiet stretch of dirt off the road. I remember thinking how perfect it was. The hike started off normal. Birds, wind in the trees, the usual sounds. But about 30 minutes in, I saw someone ahead of me. A man. He was walking on the same trail, maybe 20 to 30 meters in front. At first, nothing about it seemed strange. But as I got closer, something felt off. He was moving extremely slow, not tired slow, not casual slow, deliberately slow. I tried adjusting my pace to keep distance, but it didn't matter. I kept catching up. Eventually, I had no choice but to pass him, so I walked up beside him and said, "Hey." The moment I got next to him, he suddenly sped up, perfectly matching my pace, like he'd been waiting for that moment. He turned toward me, stuck out his hand, and said his name was Oscar. I shook it. His grip was firm, maybe a little too firm, but I brushed it off. We started talking, and at first, everything seemed normal. He asked where I was heading. I told him about the clearing. He said he'd been there before, said it was a great spot. Then he mentioned something that stuck with me. He said he was already set up, deeper in the woods. That's when I noticed. He didn't have a backpack, no gear, no supplies, nothing. I asked him about it. He smiled and said, "Didn't feel like carrying it today, just out for a walk." That didn't make much sense, but again, I ignored We walked together for about 30 minutes. The whole time something felt slightly off. Not enough to panic, but enough to stay aware. Before we reached the clearing, he said something else. He told me I could stop by his campsite later. Said we could cook something, have a fire. It sounded normal, friendly even. And since I was alone, I agreed. When we got to the clearing, I started setting up my tent. Oscar didn't stop. He just kept walking, straight into the trees. Within seconds, he was gone. The rest of the day was quiet, peaceful, almost too peaceful. No other hikers came through, no sounds except the forest, and strangely, no sign of Oscar. As the sun started setting, I was beginning to think maybe he left. Maybe I just imagined how weird he felt earlier. That's when I heard footsteps coming from the trees. Oscar stepped out of the forest like nothing had happened. Same calm expression, same steady voice. He asked how everything was going, like we'd just seen each other 5 minutes ago. Then he asked if I still wanted to come by his fire. I hesitated, just for a second, but I didn't want to seem paranoid, so I said yes and followed him. We walked deeper into the woods, much deeper than I expected. The trees got thicker. The light from my campsite disappeared almost completely. After about 5 minutes, I saw the glow of a fire, but when we reached it, my stomach dropped. Oscar wasn't alone. There were 2 other men sitting around the fire. He hadn't mentioned them, not once. They both looked up as we approached. Neither of them smiled, neither of them spoke. I immediately felt like I'd made a mistake. Still, I sat down, because turning around right then would have been obvious, and I didn't know how they'd react. At first, there was small talk, basic questions, where I was from, how long I was staying, but the conversation didn't last. After a few minutes, it just stopped, and the silence that followed was heavy. I noticed something. Every time I looked at one of them, they'd quickly look away, like they were watching me when I wasn't looking. Oscar was focused on the fire, boiling water, stirring something, not saying much. The other 2 just sat there, quiet, still. I tried to act normal, but inside, my instincts were screaming. Something wasn't right. After a few more minutes, I stood up, tried to keep my voice calm, and said I was going to grab something from my tent. No one responded. I waited a second, then turned and started walking away. I'd only taken a few steps when I heard movement behind me. I looked back. The 2 men were standing, just standing there, watching me. Oscar didn't move, didn't look up, just kept staring into the fire. I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. Faster this time. The deeper I got into the trees, the worse the feeling became. Like something was wrong, like I wasn't supposed to leave. After about a minute, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned around. The fire was still visible through the trees, but the men were gone. All 3 of them. Just gone. No footsteps, no sound, nothing. I ran. I didn't think about it. Didn't try to understand it. I just ran. Back through the trees, back to the clearing, back to my tent. I didn't pack properly, didn't organize anything. I just grabbed what I could and left the rest. The entire time I felt like I was being watched. Like they were somewhere in the trees, just out of sight. I didn't stop running until I reached the trail, and I didn't slow down until I got to my car. When I drove away, I checked my mirrors constantly, expecting to see someone behind me, but there was nothing. I called the police later, told them everything. They checked the area, no other cars, no campsites, no signs of anyone else being out there, which means one thing: those men didn't drive there, and they didn't just randomly show up. They were already there, waiting, and somehow, they knew exactly where I was going. This happened back in 2015. I had a dog named Sammy, a retriever mix. She wasn't just a pet, she was my companion in everything. Camping, road trips, long drives. If I was going somewhere, she was coming with me, and she was the kind of dog that made you feel safe, alert, protective, always aware of her surroundings. There was one campsite I kept going back to, about an hour from my place, tucked deep into a section of forest that most people didn't really bother with. It wasn't marked well, not popular, not scenic enough for crowds, which is exactly why I liked it. It was quiet, predictable, safe, or at least, I thought it was. We got there sometime around 2 p.m. Same routine as always. Pulled in, unloaded the gear, set up the tent. Everything felt normal, at least at first. But then I noticed Sammy. She wasn't acting like herself. Normally, the moment we arrived, she'd take off running, exploring, sniffing everything, chasing whatever moved. But this time, she stayed close, too close. She kept circling back to me. Her ears were up, her posture stiff. Every few seconds she'd stop and just stare into the trees, not curious, not playful, focused. I followed her gaze a few times, trying to see what she was seeing. But there was nothing, just trees, still, silent. After about half an hour, she seemed to settle down. Her body relaxed. She started acting normal again, running around, grabbing sticks, doing her usual thing. I remember actually laughing to myself, thinking maybe she just smelled something earlier, like a deer or another animal, and got worked up. It happens, so I didn't think much of it. The afternoon passed slowly, peacefully. I made some food, sat around, listened to the quiet. That's the thing about places like that. The silence isn't empty. It's full. You just don't notice it until something breaks it. As the sun started to dip, I added more wood to the fire, got it going strong, lighting up a good radius around us. Sammy was laying beside me, relaxed, calm, and then she froze. Her entire body locked up, ears forward, eyes fixed ahead. I looked up, and I saw it. Something moved, just beyond the edge of the light. Near the trees, it wasn't clear, just a shift, a shape that didn't belong. Before I could even process it, Sammy exploded forward. She sprinted straight into the darkness, barking, growling, full aggression. "Sammy!" I yelled, jumping up, but she didn't hesitate, didn't slow down. I ran after her, without thinking. Straight into the trees, the light dropped off almost instantly. The deeper I went, the darker it got. Branches scratching at me, uneven ground, shadows everywhere. I could hear her ahead, barking, chasing something. Then, her bark started to fade. And then, they stopped. Completely. I kept running for a few more seconds before slowing down. Then stopping, listening. Nothing, no movement, no sound, just silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. I called her name. Once, twice, 10 times. Nothing came back. That's when reality hit me. I couldn't keep going like that. Not in the dark, not without light, not knowing where I was. So I made the decision to turn back. It felt wrong, leaving her out there. But I knew if I got lost too, it would only make things worse. Back at camp, I grabbed my flashlight immediately. Didn't waste a second. Then I went back out. Same direction, same path, calling her name the entire time. The beam of the flashlight barely cut through the trees. Everything beyond a few meters just disappeared into darkness. I kept moving, slow, careful, listening for anything. Minutes passed, then longer. At some point, time just stopped making sense. All I could hear was my own breathing and my voice echoing through the forest. Then my light caught something, a small reflection on the ground. I stepped closer, and my stomach dropped. It was her tag. Just the tag. The collar was gone. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. There was no way it just fell off. It looked like it had been pulled, torn. That's when I started thinking the worst. But then, my light moved, and I saw her, a few meters ahead, near a tree. She was lying down. I rushed to her, dropped to my knees. "Sammy, hey, come on." She didn't respond. She was breathing, alive, but completely still. Her body was shaking, not slightly, violently. Her eyes were wide open, locked on something, behind me. I turned. Nothing, just darkness. But she wouldn't look away. It took me a while to get her to move. At first, she wouldn't even stand. I had to carry her. After a while, she started walking again, but she stayed glued to me, pressed against my leg. We made our way back, slowly, carefully. When the fire came into view, I felt relief for about half a second. Then I saw the campsite. It was destroyed. The tent ripped open, poles bent, fabric torn. My bag emptied, everything scattered, like someone had gone through it in a rush, or in anger. I spun around, shining the flashlight into the trees. Nothing, no movement, no sound. But Sammy froze again. She was staring into the darkness, same way she did earlier, focused, locked, terrified. That was enough. I didn't try to understand it, didn't try to fix anything. I grabbed what I could, left the rest. And we got out of there. The walk back felt longer than it was. Every sound felt like something following us. Every shadow felt like something moving, but nothing ever showed itself. At least, not where I could see it. We made it back to the truck, drove home. Sammy recovered after a few days. Physically, she was fine. No injuries, no wounds, nothing that explained what happened. But she was different for a while, quieter, more alert, and her collar was never found. Years later, after she passed, I went back. I don't know why. Maybe closure, maybe curiosity, but the place felt exactly the same. Too quiet, too still, and even in daylight. I had that same feeling, like something was there, watching, waiting, and whatever it was, I don't think it ever left. There's something about being completely alone, in places where no one is supposed to be. No witnesses, no help, no way to prove what really happened. And that's what makes these stories so unsettling, because for the people who experience them, they're real. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe it was someone passing through. Or maybe some places aren't meant to be explored alone. If you've ever had a strange or unexplainable experience while camping, I'd like to hear it. Leave your story in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, because there are plenty more stories like this. Until next time, don't go too far off the trail.